Welcome to this explainer. There's just something incredibly satisfying about taking the maintenance of a high-performance, luxury German V8 into your own hands. Today, we're cutting through the guesswork. We'll distill exactly what you need to know, the precise specs, the right tools, and the exact techniques to service the engine oil of your W221 Mercedes-Benz S550 perfectly. So, why do this yourself? Well, your S550 absolutely deserves premium care, right? But you really don't need to hand over hundreds of dollars at a dealership when you can get professional-level results right there in your own driveway. The sources we're pulling from today highlight a really important point. Doing this yourself isn't just about saving a few bucks, though, hey, that's a nice bonus. It's really about taking ownership. It's knowing exactly what filter went into that housing, knowing the exact grade of oil lubricating your twin turbos or naturally aspirated V8, and knowing for sure that the job was done with absolute precision. We're breaking this explainer down into 4 quick parts: S550 oil specs and essentials, extraction methods, the filter and refill process, and finally, dash resets and checks. Let's get into it. Module 1, S550 oil specs and essentials. The good news here is that you really don't need a massive, complex tool setup, just a few key items. You're going to need an 8mm socket if you plan on dropping that undercarriage belly pan. Now, for the traditional drain method, grab a 13mm socket for the drain plug itself. But listen, the absolute must-have tool here is a 74mm 14-flute filter cup socket. That piece is going to fit perfectly over the plastic oil filter housing cap on the top of the engine, making sure you don't crack or strip it during removal. All right, tools are sorted. Now, let's talk fluid. The sources are crystal clear on this. You absolutely must use a high-quality synthetic oil that meets Mercedes-Benz 229.5 specifications. If you go with the 0W40, you're getting the best all-weather protection. It flows super fast during cold morning starts, but it still maintains excellent wear resistance when you're cruising at highway speeds. A 5W40 is also perfectly fine, especially if your local winters rarely drop below, say, minus 13 degrees Fahrenheit. But remember, full synthetic is completely non-negotiable here. It prevents sludge and protects those crucial internal timing chains. Now for a super crucial point, the capacity. A standard fill requires exactly 9 quarts. That's roughly 8.5 liters. You want to ensure seamless operation without building up excessive pressure. One of our sources, Costa Oil, explicitly warns against overfilling. If you dump too much oil in there, the spinning crankshaft can actually whip that oil up into a foam. And foamy oil, it just doesn't pump well. It can literally lead to severe engine damage because your hydraulic lifters and bearings end up starved of proper lubrication. So precision is key. As for when to change it, Mercedes-Benz recommends swapping out that premium synthetic every 10,000 miles or 12 months, whichever hits first. This prevents sludge and reduces internal friction. But, as noted by some of the enthusiastic mechanics in our sources, if you're doing a lot of stop-and-go driving, taking short little trips where the oil never quite reaches full operating temp, or if you just want to be extra protective of your investment, a lot of owners prefer to cut that interval right in half, down to 5,000 miles or every 6 months. Module 2, Extraction, Pump versus Drain. So there's a really clear contrast between the lightning-fast, top-down vacuum method used by the dealerships and your traditional, hands-on, bottom drain approach. With a vacuum extractor, you literally just push a tube straight down the dipstick and pump all the oil out from the top. You don't even have to jack up the car. It's exactly how the dealership does it to save time. On the flip side, the gravity drain is the classic method, right? Lifting the car, taking off those 8mm bolts on the splash pan, and pulling the 13mm plug. The real benefit of the gravity drain isn't necessarily better extraction, but that it actually forces you to get under there and visually inspect your suspension, belts, and undercarriage while you're at it. Now, I know exactly what the purists out there are thinking. Wait, doesn't the pump leave a bunch of dirty sludge sitting at the bottom of the oil pan? Well, if you're worried about that, real-world tests show it actually extracts almost 98% of the oil. A source from the channel Nevada Robert did a really cool real-world test on this. He pumped the oil out from the top, then lifted the car and pulled the bottom drain plug just to see what was left. He measured a minuscule 250 cubic centimeters remaining. That is literally just 0.2% of the total capacity. So yeah, the top-down method is overwhelmingly validated. But hey, regardless of the extraction method you end up choosing, here is a massive pro tip. Always crack open that oil filter cap first so the trapped oil can flow down into the pan. This is just a brilliant mechanical habit to form. That filter housing holds a decent amount of fluid. By taking your 74mm cup and just loosening it enough to break that air seal, you allow all that oil to drain straight down into the sump before you extract it. If you skip this step, I guarantee you'll end up spilling that housed oil all over the place when you finally pull the filter out later. Module 3, the filter and refill process.
When you're swapping the filter, it is absolutely vital to replace all the rubber O-rings on the central stem of the cap. Your new filter kit is going to come with fresh ones. You just pry the old ones off, carefully, maybe use a flathead screwdriver, and slide the new ones right into their specific grooves. Then, make sure you lube them up generously with some fresh oil. You do not want them to bind or tear when you screw that cap back in. Finally, snap your new fleece filter into the cap, lower the whole thing in, and thread the assembly entirely by hand at first. You never, ever want to force it with a wrench right out of the gate and risk cross-threading the housing. The guides heavily emphasize this next point. This is a number you absolutely cannot mess up. You need to use a torque wrench to tighten that filter cap to exactly 25 Newton meters, which translates to roughly 18 pound-feet. This plastic cap has to seal under immense oil pressure. Leave it too loose, it's going to leak oil all over your pristine engine bay. Over-tighten it like a gorilla, that plastic cap is going to crack, and you'll be stranded waiting for a replacement part. So use a torque wrench, wait for the click, and just walk away. Okay, when it's finally time to refill, start pouring in that synthetic oil, but intentionally hold a little bit back. Remember, the total capacity is 9 quarts, but there is always going to be a tiny bit of residual oil hiding out in the engine coolers and lines. So pour in about 8.5 quarts, let it settle for a bit, and check your levels before just blindly dumping the rest in. Like we talked about earlier, overfilling causes foaming and serious engine damage. Trust me, it is way easier to top it off later than it is to drain out a half quart of freshly poured oil. Module 4, dash resets and level checks. While some W221 models do actually have a physical dipstick tucked at the back of the engine bay, many rely entirely on the onboard computer. To use this brilliant electronic dipstick, first make sure you're parked on perfectly level ground. Let the engine sit for a few minutes so all the oil drains down. Then, just turn the ignition on without starting the engine. So, hit the start button once without touching the brake, and navigate to the measuring screen on your dash to verify your fluid level says OK. If it throws a measuring not possible message, don't panic. Just give it another minute to settle and try it again. Once your oil level is looking perfect, you've got to clear that pesky Service A or Service B notification. Resetting the dash is honestly a bit like a secret digital handshake. According to a great breakdown from Rob the engineer, the trickiest part is just getting the timing right. You need to be on the main tripometer screen first. Then press the phone pickup button on your steering wheel, and within a split second, press and hold the OK button. Hold them both down for 2 or 3 seconds until this hidden workshop menu pops up. From there, it's super easy. Just scroll down to Service Done, select your oil grade, and confirm the full service. Turn the car off, and boom, that reminder is gone for another 10,000 miles. By combining those precision specs, choosing the right extraction method, doing some careful mechanical assembly, and executing that secret digital handshake, you have just given your engine a whole new lease on life. Now that you've totally bypassed the dealership and mastered your S550's oil maintenance all by yourself, I've got to ask, what DIY project are you going to tackle next? Are you going to flush the brakes, swap out those cabin filters, or maybe even move on to the transmission? The garage is yours. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.